Alright, there's our theme music. It's the He Mistook Her for a Swan Emergency Broadcasting System. Episode 13. Lucky 13. Here we go. Hey everybody. It is episode 13. It's a baker's dozen. It is lucky or unlucky, as you like it. Unlucky because I guess it was just inconvenient for the monks in the old days, and like there was one too many guys at the dinner and all that. Lucky, it's the 13 is the number of the tarot card for death. Sounds ominous. But actually in the tarot, I think it's really more about rebirth, generation. You're turning a corner. It's done with the old and in with the new, and that's the way I'm looking at it. Okay, it's 13, out with the old, in with the new. For God's sakes, that's it. That's the way we're looking at it. I looked at the stupid birthdays today. There's really nobody I give a frickin' damn about, actually. Okay, Gilda Radner's birthday today. That's, she's great. She is great. Henry VIII. Okay, imagine if they met. Maybe she would have chopped his head off. Pretty unlikely, you'd have to say. But, we could hope.
Thus disturbing space-time.
It's like National Paul Bunyan Day. What the fuck is that all about? I mean, some of these things are just daft. Daft is a word I love. I picked that word up from my good friend out in Salmon Arm, Deirdre. Thank you for that word. I use it continuously. Some things are just daft. I was listening to the internet radio station, WFMU, today, and it was. I got to tell you, you got to check it out. There's some great shows on Saturday and Sunday. All you have to do is just type in wfmu.org in your browser or on your phone, and you can listen to this stuff. And it, fucking good. Today there was the Toddophonic Todd show. Toddophonic Todd. I mean, it's funny already, right? And he starts playing this old school Detroit rock. He's doing the Stooges, the MC5, Alice Cooper. He's doing the old Bob Seger, the good Bob Seger. And then all of a sudden, he plays like 7 Suzi Quatro songs in a row. I'm going, holy shit, that's more Suzi Quatro songs than I've heard in the last frickin' 7 years. That's a lot of Suzi Quatro songs. And it was great, And then he interviews Suzi Quatro after that, and about her, how she got started in this all-girl group called the Pleasure Seekers in the mid-'60s, which is one of the very first all-girl groups, and they're from Detroit, and it was all Suzi Quatro and her sisters. The stuff you learn, okay? Check it out, Pleasure Seekers, and just go listen to some Suzi Quatro. For God's sakes, don't you remember like when you were a little glam aficionado with your big shoes and your silver pants and your shirt your mom made, and everybody just took a look at that album cover of Suzi Quatro in her leather jumpsuit and went, yeah, Suzi Quatro, that's cool, and she's still pretty fucking cool. Sirius sent me something in my inbox. Not Sirius, what I'm talking about, Spotify. You know how they do that? They try and figure out what you like. But what I like is so weird and disjointed, and I just like too many different things. I give Spotify's algorithm a hard time, I think, which is good. It needs to have a hard time. But anyway, so I get this thing, new music you might like. I'm going, oh great. Sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. Louis Armstrong. I'm going, Louis fucking Armstrong has been dead like for 30 years. What the fuck? I mean, why are you sending me this? Why are you sending me new music I might like? Louis Armstrong, Hello Dolly. Are you serious? Are you freaking serious? So, losers. Anyway, it got me thinking a little bit about jazz and blues and Karen Dalton and Dave Van Ronk and Mississippi John Hurt And I'm telling you, when when you were a kid and your mom or your grandma knitted you a sweater and like a little piece gets loose here, and your mom goes, don't pull that, okay? We're gonna pull it, okay? We're gonna pull that little thread, and the arm might fall off. It's possible, but that'll be punk, right? So that's cool. We're gonna put some ingredients together, and we're gonna make some Jello 1, 2, 3, and just see if I can string this nebulous story that has come to me. It's come to me in a vision. Let's see if we can pull this freaking thing together. It kind of starts off with Jelly Roll Morton, and it ends up with the Mississippi John Hurt song, Make Me Down a Pallet on Your Floor, which is a song I've known for years, and it's a great song. And yeah, I'm going to tell you a little more about it. Might suck. Hope not. Let's see. All right, let's talk about two guys. Let's start with Jelly Roll Morton. Born in New Orleans, 1890. Started off playing guitar, but even though piano was a lady's instrument, he got over it. And he started playing piano, and he got pretty damn good at it. And by the age of 14, he found that he could make what, $100 a night playing in brothels in New Orleans. And that's what he did. He was there at the turn of the century. There's some other crazy cats playing around there. There's a lot of gangsters. There's a lot of murderers. There's a lot of musicians. There are a lot of murdering musicians and musical gangsters, too. For example, you got your Buddy Bolden. Buddy Bolden, legendary Buddy Bolden. Michael Ondaatje wrote a book about him, Coming Through Slaughter. He could raise a crowd at a moment's notice, and they played all these really dangerous places, and people were murdered on a regular basis. Jelly Roll said you'd go to the morgue and there'd be 8 or 10 people there from the night before. So that's the kind of world that was. Jelly Roll starts up his own band, and he gradually more or less invents this new style called jazz. There's a few other people involved, but he's one of the handful of guys who started it off, who made that transition from what they called ragtime to jazz. Billy Bolden was part of that too. Jelly Roll says he was a little more ragtime than jazz. Who knows? He never recorded anything, so we'll never know. Jelly Roll gets pretty popular. He's recording songs. He's making records. Over time, he becomes a little less popular. He gets to become old-fashioned, and in the end, he ends up running this club called the Jungle Club in Washington, D.C. And while he's there, this other dude in Washington, D.C., Alan Lomax, the great collector and preserver of American folk music, is kind of convinced to have a little chat with Jelly Roll. Alan is not a big jazz fan. Alan figures jazz is pretty much like what we would think of as crappy pop music, and he thinks it's destroying the old music. But Jelly Rolls was around there from the start, so he says, okay, we'll have a little chat. So he sets up a piano in the Library of Congress there and invites him down, and they start chatting. Turns out Jelly Roll has a photographic memory, and he is just such a charming talker that he just starts playing the piano, playing old songs, and telling his story. He's telling the story of jazz, and he's telling the story of his life. He's telling the story of the gangsters, the murderers, and the musicians, while playing this cool, original jazz music. So Alan Lomax is so enthralled by this, they end up having like 9 hours of recording. And don't forget, this recording was made on these little discs where you could only put 4 or 5 minutes of recording on each one. So there's somebody like madly changing the discs there as Jelly Roll just keeps talking. One of the songs that Jelly Roll does is Make Me Down a Pallet on Your Floor. go figure about that. Another song he talks about is a song that was originally Buddy Bolden's song, apparently, the music, and it's called I Thought I Heard Buddy Bolden Say. And this whole song, it's kind of filthy, and it's got all these words about a club called the Funky Butt. So you can draw your own conclusions. Anyway, so all that is preserved, and you can go hear it. You can go hear any of that stuff now. It's all on the internet. A lot of it was not released originally because it was so frickin' filthy. Because those were rough times, and they had rough language. And it was not until after the year 2000 that a lot of it actually was allowed out. So, but now you can hear it all, with all its swearing and everything. And okay, so that's Jelly Roll. So at the end of Jelly Roll's life, he wrote this big hit called King Porter Stomp, which Benny Goodman had a gigantic hit with, and but Jelly Roll never got any dough for it. He'd somehow signed away or lost his rights. So he thought, that's it, I'm writing another song. So even though he was old and frail, he wrote this other song called Sweet Substitute, which was recorded, and it sank like stone. It did not make him the millions of bucks that he was hoping. So and then he died around 1940. Meanwhile, okay, number 2 guy, Mississippi John Hurt, born 1893 in Mississippi. You know, about the same age as Jelly Roll, little younger. Farmer. He learns guitar. People start paying attention to him. In 1928, somebody says, "Hey, you're pretty good. Come on down. Record some songs with OK Records." So he does. So he records a whole bunch of sides with them, 78s, and yeah, it sells some, but it's not selling like hotcakes. So they basically drop him, and he goes back to being a farmer for 40 years. So in 1963, a bunch of fresh-faced young dudes, they know his old 78s. They're collectors. They think he's the shit, right? And they know that he's got this song, Avalon, My Hometown. So they open up the atlas and they go, whoa, there actually is a little town in Mississippi called Avalon. Let's go there. They hop in their Beetle. They drive down there. They knock on a bunch of doors. They talk to a bunch of different John Hurts, and they finally get the right one. And after a bit of suspicion, he lets them in. And it turns out he can play guitar just as good as he ever could, maybe better. So they go, well, you're coming to New York with us. So they get him, they bundle him up, they take him off New York. He records a bunch of albums. He's touring at this ripe old age, and he's with the other couple guys that they've rediscovered, Son House and Skip James, touring all over. But Mississippi John Hurt is like the nicest guy in the world. He's the guy that you want to hang out with. And he's got this really weird, not weird, but very different style of guitar. He's got a syncopated finger-picking style that is very different than any of the other Delta blues guys. And it turns out he also plays this song, Make Me Down a Pallet on Your Floor, that Jelly Roll knows from way back when. Jelly Roll said it was an old song when he was born. And also, Mississippi John Hurt also knows the song Funky Butt, or I Thought I Heard Buddy Bolden Say. So how come Mississippi John Hurt, who doesn't sound like the rest of the Delta guys, knows all this New Orleans stuff? I don't know. We'll never know. But, okay, so here's where it all comes back to us. The great New York folk guy, Dave Van Ronk, arguably one of the original guys in that scene, he loves Jelly Roll. And he knows the song, Sweet Substitute, and he loves the sad story about it, that Jelly Roll was at the end of his life, and he wants to make this hit, and it flops, and, like that. So Dave Van Ronk works up his own folk version of it, and he plays it around Greenwich Village. Who hears him? Karen Dalton hears him. She loves that song. She works up her own version, and it ends up on her second album, Sweet Substitute. So that's how Jelly Roll's song got on her album. So in the meantime, young Steve Koch in Calgary is learning how to play guitar, and I bought this double album of Mississippi John Hurt. And one of the songs on there is Make Me Down a Pallet on Your Floor. which is such a cool song. And actually, it's interesting what Jelly Roll said about it was that New Orleans was so dangerous in those days that it was often the case that you would have to make a little pallet on your friend's floor and stay over at night rather than go through the darkened streets because it was dangerous. There were kidnappers out there, a lot of kidnappers. Apparently it wasn't illegal, but the good thing was we were allowed to kill them. Okay, so sometimes you just had to make a little pallet on your floor. But then Jelly Roll starts going off on a second tangent, and he's going, well, and then there's also the case where, the married ladies, they don't want to leave, Monica Lewinsky stains on their beds when they're entertaining their men friends while their husbands are at work. So they throw down a little pallet, and then they roll that up, and it's not there when Daddy comes home. And then he starts adding all these words to it, and it is just frickin' filthy. Like, you think I got a dirty mouth? Holy shit. It is. You should check this stuff out. I mean, I'm actually even a little afraid to put a link to it, for risk of offending your tender ears. But yeah, Jelly Roll's version of "Make Me Down, Pallet on Your Floor." It starts out the same as Mississippi John Hurt's, and then it just goes AWOL, and there's a lot of fucking. I'll tell you that. So there you go. I'm going to play it for you, but I'm going to play the Mississippi John Hurt version because I don't want to offend your tender ears. All right, back in the green room. Make Me a Pallet on Your Floor. Cool old song. We know it from a bunch of different sources. We know it's old. It's such an old, deep song. It's got different versions, different verses. People pick and choose what they want. Mississippi John Hurt and Jelly Roll Morton did their takes later on. Much later on, across the ocean, Sandy Denny at Fairport Convention did a version of it in England. So it made it over there. Gillian Welch does a killer version of it. You should check that out. She probably learned it from Merle Travis. He learned it from Mississippi John Hurt. And so did I. So let's give it a shot. Make me a pallet down soft and low. Make me a pallet on your floor. Oh, make me down. Oh, make me down. Make me a pallet down soft and low. Make me a pallet on your floor. Up the country, up the country where the cold, sleet and snow. I'm gone, yes I'm going where the cold, sleet and snow. Ain't no telling how much further I may go. Oh, make me down. Make me down. Make me a pallet down soft and low. Make me a pallet on your floor. Way I'm sleeping, my back and shoulders tired. Way I'm sleeping, my back and shoulders tired. Yeah, the way I'm sleeping, my back and shoulders tired. Believe I turn over, try it on the other side. Oh, make me down. Make me down. Make me a my good gal catch you will. Well, don't you let my good girl catch you will. Well, she may shoot you, she may stab you too. Ain't no telling what she may do. Oh, make me down, make me down, make me a pallet down soft and low. Make me a pallet on your floor. Make me a pallet on your floor.